Hey, Uncorrupt coming your way with an OTK free Shaman guide. Got a lot of information to cover here as far as the deck, what's in it, and how to play it. Video could run a little bit long, but it's going to be packed with useful information. Hang in there, it's going to be worth it. First thing that I want to talk about with this deck is I want to make sure that I have an accurate understanding of what the deck actually is. This is a freeze Shaman deck that has an OTK package included in it. It's not really a true OTK deck. That's not the primary win condition of the deck. It's just something that we can do if we have the combo pieces or if our board-based tempo plan fails. The reason why is because Shaman is just so good at a board presence and tempo presence throughout the game, you're just going to get wins from it. Cards like Wild Paw Cavern, Snowfall Guardian allow us to have a board presence. Snowfall Guardian, of course, is going to allow us to freeze our opponent's board. They don't get to trade with our minions. We get a big minion on board, and then we can potentially use that to go face and attack our opponent. Very, very powerful, as I'm sure you've seen with other free Shaman decks, and there's going to be some similarities in that playstyle. Once our board-based plan fails, if it fails, or if we just happen to have the combo pieces, then we're going to feel free to go for the one-turn kill combo. Some things to keep in mind, especially with the Snowfall Guardian here, is if you're going to freeze the board, you're going to freeze your minions as well. And one of the things that you want to consider is, do I want to freeze my minions for this turn, the current turn, or do I want to freeze them for the next turn? Sometimes it's not going to make a difference and it doesn't matter, but some things that you're going to want to consider. If I freeze my minions this turn so that they don't get to attack this turn, how likely is it that my opponent can remove those minions? If you don't expect your minions to be able to survive to the following turn, then you're going to want to go ahead and get that damage in now and then let them be frozen on the next turn. If, for example, you're afraid that your opponent might play a taunt and you need to use your smaller minions to kill the taunt so that your big Snowfall Guardian can go face for the big hit, then you might actually want to freeze your minions this turn, allowing them to attack next turn. So the Snowfall Guardian, or really any freeze effect in Hearthstone, it freezes the minions for one turn. If your minions have not acted this turn and they're frozen, then they're frozen this turn, you can't do anything with them, but then they unlock next turn. Just a couple of things to keep in mind there. Again, sometimes there's no difference, but sometimes it's actually really important which turn they get to attack. And it's also important, not necessarily because your opponent may play a taunt, but sometimes there's cards with text that can be frozen that are just really dangerous. For example, let's say you're playing the mirror match, your opponent has a Bolner Hammerbeak down on the board. If Bolner doesn't get to attack, if he's just the vanilla 1-4 stats, that's not a big deal, but his text is really powerful, so maybe you need to attack with some of your minions and not all of your minions. It's going to depend scenario to scenario, situation to situation. Just think it through, make sure that you're doing the right thing. Some other inclusions in the deck here that kind of separate this from the regular free Shaman. We've got Diligent Note Taker here. Return a spell to your hand with the Spell Burst. I find myself using this most with the wind chills to be able to return it to our hand and give us an extra cycle. Using it with wind chill actually has a couple of benefits beyond being able to cycle an additional card. Sometimes it's just really strong to be able to freeze your opponent's minions on the board so that they can't make trades, and then that allows us to be able to get a bigger Snowfall Guardian when we drop this down on the board. And of course, freezing minions in place will also allow us to prevent our opponent from being able to do damage to our face. Again, that's just part of the really strong tempo base that this deck is going to have. Diligent Note Taker, you could also return Lightning Bloom. Sometimes I've been able to return a Corrupted Dunk Tank and had some very good results. Again, most of the time I'm just returning Wind Chill. Another option might be, an Instructor Fireheart spell. If you find something really good that you think you might need, you could return that. But typically, I'm viewing Diligent Note Taker as more of kind of like a Wind Chill draw engine. Again, it's going to vary from game to game depending on what's going on, but that's just kind of how I look at it. Primal Dungeoneer included in the deck. Draw a spell. If it's a nature spell, draw an elemental. Our nature spells in the deck are Lightning Bloom and Dunk Tank, and then of course we have frost spells here. We have the Wind Chill, and then we also have Wild Paw Cavern, which actually doesn't have a spell school. So keep in mind whenever you play this Primal Dungeoneer that you'll be able to look and see what's still in your deck to calculate the odds of being able to hit a nature spell, which is going to allow you to draw an elemental. And just a note here, elementals, we've got Sleep Breakers, and then we also have the Snowfall Guardian. So again, just make sure when you make that play that you have a reasonable expectation of what's going to happen based on the cards that are left in your deck. It's really good draw. It just makes sense to be in the deck. Any kind of an OTK deck is going to be draw hungry, and that's something that we've been able to work in. Also, it's just great synergy with the Snowfall Guardian to be able to get the Guardian in hand to freeze the opponent's board, either defensively or offensively. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be winning a lot just from the board presence here. We've got one Rustrot Viper in the deck. This is pretty much specifically for the OTK Owl Warlocks to break that 4-mana weapon that reduces the mana cost of their entire hand. That's really the only matchup. I'm not actually seeing a lot of OTK Owl Warlocks. This card could actually be cut for something else. Almost anything else would be better if we're not actually being able to use the weapon destruction effect. Other times that you might be able to use it, there are some Doomhammer Elemental Shamans out there. It's always valuable to break a Doomhammer if you can't freeze your opponent's face. And then it's also going to see some value in the Paladin matchup. After your opponent plays Cariel, you can break the 2/5 that reduces incoming damage by half. Talon Fordring also included in the deck. Death Rattle, draw your highest cost minion. Isharge is going to be the highest cost minion. Isharge, of course, is part of the OTK. If you don't hit Isharge, then you can possibly hit a Mutinous. We do have Brucon in the deck. Just a note about Brucon in relation to Talon Fordring. Brucon is not a minion, so Talon is never going to draw Brucon. The hero cards, they're not minions and they're not spells. They're a hero card, which is something different altogether. Just a little note there, don't play Talon if you're actually looking to draw into Brucon. It's never going to work. Mutinous we have in the deck really for some disruption. There's still some quest decks out on the ladder. Sometimes you can hit a key minion like a quest reward, obviously being very, very powerful to get that out of your opponent's hand. In the mirror match, sometimes you could hit a Snowfall Guardian. If it's a true mirror match and you're playing against Shaman OTK, perhaps you could hit Bolner, you could hit Charge. Just a lot of different things that you could hit. Please, oh please, oh please, God, let me one time be able to hit Humongous Owl against a Warlock to totally shut down their combo. It hasn't happened yet that I've been playing this deck, but I'm very, very hopeful. That's feels like the kind of thing that would really make my day, and I'm sure it would make your day as well. Brucon, again, in the deck. Brucon, the hero card, he's good, but he's not great. I actually had a game where my hand was doing nothing. It was turn 3, and I played Coin, Lightning Bloom, and played Brucon on turn 3. And the game, actually, it was not a blowout game. There's going to be some RNG, depending on the hero powers that you're going to roll from turn to turn. You know, if you get, the 2 damage AoE Lightning, and your opponent doesn't have a board, or their board is big, and it just doesn't do a whole lot, and then you could hit the healing, and then you could be back to Lightning, so the RNG can sometimes mess you up. Definitely all of those hero powers are going to be better, more useful than just dropping a totem, but it's not like an win card. So if your hand is doing nothing, like it was for me that one particular game, yes, you could use some ramp to try to get it out early, but it's not going to be a game breaker. Typically the ramp with the Lightning Blooms, if you can get out a Wildpaw Cavern on, on turn 3, coin it out, turn 2, bloom it out, or even turn 1, coin, bloom Wildpaw Cavern, that's really a card that you want to ramp into. Wildpaw Cavern, it's just better the earlier in the game that you get it out. Super, super strong. I'd actually love to know the stats on the win rate of a turn 1 Wildpaw Cavern. Hopefully we can find that out at some point. If you got some information on that, hit me up in the comments. I would definitely be interested to know. Turn 1 Wildpaw Cavern, what happens. That's going to bring us down to the OTK. If you're not familiar with it, the combo, of course, is Isharge and Bolner. So typically what we're going to have to do, or not typically, what we have to do in order to get this combo is we're going to have to play a Corrupted Circus Medic that deals 4 damage, and we're going to have to play a Corrupted Dunk Tank. Then, once we have 12 mana, which means we're going to have Bolner, Lightning Bloom, and Isharge, or with the Gavel, we could have a discount on Bolner, and we could also potentially have a discount on Isharge. If we have 2 total discounts, it's only going to take 10 mana. You don't need the Lightning Bloom. Typically, Bloom, Bolner, Isharge. Isharge is going to give back the corrupted cards that we played, which would be Medic and Dunk Tank. Bolner is going to allow us to be able to repeat that every time we play the Medic. We're going to get more Dunk Tanks and more Circus Medics. So, a couple of notes here. There is an RNG element as far as which cards are returned off of the Isharge Battle Cry. It doesn't necessarily go in order by when you play, the order that you played it in. Potentially, you could end up with a handful of medics, which isn't a big problem unless you're board locked. If you can't put any more minions on your board, you can't play a medic and you can't reactivate the battle cry. So just kind of be aware, how many minions do I have on board? What health is my opponent at? As in, how many times are you going to have to be able to trigger that E-Charge battle cry to be able to get that damage back in hand? And how much space you have on the board to be able to play those medics. Again, hand size can sometimes be a problem. The more space you have in your hand, the more likely it is that you're going to get dunk tanks returned. So you would want to make sure that you play all of your dunk tanks before you play your next medic, so that way you can get all the cards in hand. It's never been a problem for me, but I've seen situations where it was close. Thinking about some of the matchups, I've got some notes here from specific matchups that I've played against. Anything that's based on the board, you're pretty much just trying to win with Snowfall Guardians and then repeating the Snowfall Guardian battle cry with Brilliant Macaw. If you feel like that you're going to have these big snowfalls to be able to win with, you might want to think about saving Macaw to be able to copy the Snowfall Guardian effect. You don't have to. Sometimes you can't. You can't just have turns where you're not spending mana. But it's going to be really valuable to have really 4 Snowfall Guardian effects. And that's going to be your primary win condition against board-based decks. Things like, say, Quest Warrior, Quest Rogue, anything that's going to build a board presence and try to kill you with minions. You're just going to freeze their board in place, and they're not going to be able to do anything. It's actually just unfair. But if you're looking how to play decks correctly, at a good level, you're really trying to figure out what the deck does that's unfair, and then you're trying to do it consistently, game after game. Speaking of Brilliant Macaw, just going back to this individual card just for 1 second, I will say that if you use Brilliant Macaw to copy the Corrupted Circus Medic, you're not going to get to choose the target. You're going to play the Brilliant Macaw, and then it will randomly select the target to deal that 4 damage to, so you don't get to aim it. Be careful with that. You might find yourself in a situation where it's worth the roll to see if you have good RNG. Maybe that's your only option, your only out to be able to stay alive, or potentially to be able to kill your opponent. Just know that you don't get to select where that damage goes. And also, an interesting interaction with Macaw and Instructor Fireheart. If Brilliant Macaw repeats the Instructor Fireheart battle cry, you don't get to discover the first spell. So you play Macaw, a spell will be added to your hand randomly, and then once you play that spell, you're going to get the Instructor Fireheart chain, so if you play it, then you'll get to discover a card. So just another interesting interaction there. You don't get a full, true repeat of Instructor Fireheart because you're not getting to discover that first card. That's kind of a desperation move, because if you get a card placed in your hand that's a little bit more expensive, then you don't have mana to be able to cycle through that Fireheart chain. Just something to keep in mind there. Back to the matchups. Alignment Druid specifically, it's just really unlikely that you're going to be able to get to the OTK for Alignment Druid. In order to pull that off, you would have to corrupt a medic, and you would have to corrupt a dunk tank before they play alignment. Once they play alignment, all the cards in your deck are going to be 1 cost, and then you're no longer going to be able to corrupt those cards, which means no OTK combo. I did have 1 game against an alignment druid where with the Auction House Gavel I was able to discount the cost of the medic, and then with E-Charge Bolner I was able to get a series of Circus Medics in hand. Again, once you're board locked, if you already have minions on board, which you likely will in that matchup, plus having to play Bolner and E-Charge, taking up 2 of those minion slots, you're going to be limited in the number of medics that you can play to be able to get that 4 damage face, but maybe you can get just enough damage to be able to kill the Druid. So again, Alignment Druid matchup, you're probably going for the board-based strategy. Given the right scenario with Auction House Gavel, you could discount the Circus Medic to get some kind of like a pseudo burst damage type of combo. Freeze Shaman, whether it's true freeze or whether it's just the OTK version that we're playing, like a true mirror match, a saying that I want you to remember: he who freezes last freezes best. And what I mean by that is, all things being equal, you're going to have access to 4 freezes, 2 Snowfall Guardians, 2 Brilliant Macaws. Your opponent's going to have access to the same tools, so you don't want to freeze first. If you freeze first, all things being equal, you're going to lose. Because your opponent is going to freeze last, which means their minions are going to get to attack while your minions are frozen. So I see people making this mistake a lot. I'm kind of hanging out somewhere around 500, 600, 700 legend while I've been playing this deck. I've faced people anywhere from rank 350 to 1350, and even in that range, I feel like people play the matchup wrong. A lot of times on turn 5, people are just jamming the Snowfall Guardian down on the board. I really think that's incorrect. You want your opponent to play their Snowfall Guardian. Maybe you could freeze it with a Wind Chill, and then they jam down second Snowfall. Maybe they jam down a Brilliant Macaw. But certainly you want them to use the first Snowfall Guardian first before you do. And if you can actually bait them out with a second one, that's just going to put you in a really good position to be able to win the game, because you're going to keep their minions frozen and yours are going to be able to attack. Another thing to keep in mind is board space. I had a game against an opponent who had played a Wildpaw Cavern, and because of the minions coming out from Wildpaw Cavern, as well as minions they had on the board, say like Sleepbreaker, Cage Match Custodian, they played, I think, 1, maybe 2 Snowfall Guardians, and then they were board locked. They weren't able to freeze anymore after that. So think about your board space, try to plan a little bit ahead in this matchup, and definitely remember, he who freezes last, freezes best. Now, keep in mind too, there's no such thing as a global rule. There's always going to be different scenarios in the games. You may not have an option. You may have to actually freeze the board to survive and hope to hit a top deck to be able to keep going in the game or potentially win the game. But if you have the option, he who freezes last, freezes best. Owl Warlock, again, I'm not facing too many of those, but you really want to mulligan for Rustrot Viper. If they play their weapon on turn 4, you want to be able to play the Viper to break their weapon immediately. It's going to slow them down. Definitely not a secret weapon really of any kind, as far as it's going to guarantee you a win. It's just going to slow them down. It's going to keep you in the game longer. Reasonably, you can expect to lose that matchup. You're just not going to be able to get to your OTK fast enough most of the time. But always remember, your opponent, if they bottom deck Humongous Owl, or if they bottom deck the Phylactery, it's possible. And when you're in these matchups, I think it's always helpful to have a realistic expectation of how the matchup is going to go. Go into the OTK Owl Warlock matchup, reasonably you can expect to lose, and so you don't want to get too tilted by anything that happens in that game. You're expected to lose, you play the best game that you possibly can, and you're going to be rewarded with some wins here and there. It's just the way it's going to go, unfortunately. OTK decks in general are going to be a bad matchup for this deck. Again, you know, you're going to have at least turn 10 with a Lightning Bloom in hand to be able to play the combo. If you don't have the Lightning Bloom in hand, then you're going to be digging for it, or if you're missing a combo piece. Again, Auction House Gavel, potentially you could do it on turn 10 exactly, but typically, you know, the other OTK decks, you know, you think about like Garrote Rogue, it's going to be killing you turn 7, turn 8. Mozaki Mage, turn 7, turn 8. Demon Hunter, Il'gynoth combo, turn 7, turn 8. So typically, OTK decks are going to be faster than this deck. You could reasonably expect to lose those matchups. Potentially you can get there with your board presence, but it's going to be hard. Some of those decks have a lot of removal, especially when you're out the Owl OT deck here. That's pretty much the breakdown on the deck. And that's the information that I've gleaned by playing the deck and the matchups that I've had experience with. Some things that I don't see very often that might still be out on the ladder. You know, you have Face Hunter. Usually that matchup isn't really all that bad. You could think about using medics to heal yourself, and then you're freezing their board along the way to, you know, not take so much damage. If they play a Iron Deep Trog, you can actually cast spells. Copying your opponent's Trog isn't always bad. You can actually board lock them by summoning a bunch of 1/2 Trogs, and then you're just not taking very much damage because they're only 1 attack minions, and potentially you're freezing them in place, and you're disallowing your opponent from being able to play additional minions. That can work really well. Other matchups, trying to think of some other matchups that might be out there, and to be honest, I'm kind of drawing a blank. So at this point, we're actually going to jump into some gameplay. I'm going to show you a couple of games of how I pilot the deck, and then, of course, you know, if you disagree, if you think I make a misplay, make sure you hit me up in the comments. Always happy to try to better myself at the game as well. And then just one final note for this deck. I am going to show you some games. I think it's important to have gameplay as part of these guides and instructional videos, but just be aware that I'm not going to be able to cover every different scenario that you're going to come across in the game. So the best way to actually get better really at any deck is to play it for yourself. Know that you're going to make mistakes. That's to be expected, and that's fine. But you have to learn from them. You're going to see those different scenarios. You're going to make a mistake, and then you can think about it and say, oh, that's what I should have done. And then that's how you're going to get better at the deck. If you're enjoying the video, make sure you hit that like button. Consider subscribing to my channel. I'm going to be doing more videos like this. I've already got videos like this on the channel. If you'd like to check those out, that would be much appreciated. We're going to jump right into a game. Oh, versus a shaman. Got the superior shaman skin. That puts us in the lead right off the bat. We're going to keep cage match. Mulligan for this deck again. We're looking for like a cage match custodian, sleep breaker, of course, wild paw cavern. Just going to queue up a few games here. I really don't see the value in cherry picking games for a video like this. I mean, I could play 20 games and then pick, you know, the 2 or 3 best games and stick them on the video, but I don't think that's necessarily the best way to go about this kind of a video. Showing like a super clean game, maybe you have a ridiculously good draw. Things like that just aren't going to be the best way. So we got a choice here, turn 2. We could either draw the weapon or get a wind chill in hand. We've already got a wind chill with Note Taker.
Perplexing.
Up the 2/2 and just get the weapon in hand. Also thins our deck. And potentially gets us a little bit closer to maybe a wild paw cavern. I think I like it. One Snowfall Guardian in hand, that's good. Frostbite. So he is, second Snowfall. The fact that our opponent just played Frostbite makes me think that our opponent's deck is either going to be just kind of the freeze version of the deck without the OTK. There's also a burn deck that's been going around that plays Frostbite, which is really our opponent wanting to play a lot of spell power on the board and then killing us with an OTK. Just in a cycle here.
I'll write that down.
It's the burn deck. He's still going to be running Snowfall Guardians as well as the Brilliant Macaws, so we want to be careful with our freezes. The thing is, though, if it is the burn deck, we're going to need to kill him before he can get enough damage in hand and enough spell power on board to be able to kill us, which means we may not be able to hold on to the Snowfall Guardians. He who freezes last freezes best, but this is a different matchup. We're going to have to play it with a different style. That's pretty much doing nothing. So we still have 2 Dunk Tanks and a Lightning Bloom for nature spells in the deck, thinking about this Primal Dungeoneer. And we only have 1 Elemental left in the deck, which is Sleep Breaker. I'm thinking we play it. I mean, I wouldn't mind hitting a Wild Paw Cavern.
Perplexing.
Then we can cycle our Wind Chill. You hit a Dunk Tank, that's also fine. Or rather Sleep Breaker. Again, we're just thinning our deck here, and then now we have a Dunk Tank in hand to be able to corrupt it in case we need the OTK. Just going to cycle. 2 weapons in hand now. We likely want to go ahead and use one of those. Just because we're going to have so many weapon charges. This is the burn deck. He's going to want to start freezing the board to stall. Okay, so pretty confident now that this is just the regular freeze version. So because this is just the freeze version of the deck, yeah, because this is just a regular freeze version of the deck, we want to be careful with our freezes, so I don't want to play a Snowfall Guardian here. He who freezes last freezes best, so we're going to find something else to do. We need to be careful about locking our board. Pretty much we're just looking to stall as well.
You have made a grave mistake.
Okay.
Frost bites sharper than bane.
Just cycle again. So we've got a Dunk Tank and Circus Medic in hand. We've got a 5-drop to be able to corrupt them. We've got a Lightning Bloom. So looking ahead, this is a game where we could potentially win with the OTK combo, which would be Lightning Bloom, Hammerbeak, and E-Charge. Should be a slower moving game. We can freeze the board at least twice. We're about halfway into our deck, so hopefully we'll be able to hit a Brilliant Macaw to get the 3rd freeze. Baruch-Khan. So he plays Lightning to clear the board. And probably summons the 2/3s, I think is what I would do. Okay. Good play by our opponent. Gonna get more 2/3s. There's E-Charge. So, question is, do we want to go ahead and freeze here? I feel like the answer is no. At least as far as playing like a Snowfall Guardian. Still not ready to go down that route. We can afford to take some damage here. There's a Macaw. We have our 3rd freeze in hand now. I'm not sure I even want a totem because of board space issues. Once minions start getting frozen on the board, we could potentially run out of board space for E-Charge, Bolner, and then being able to replay the Circus Medics. If our opponent plays this, he's almost board locked. And if our opponent is actually going to lock his board... Oh, he doesn't have any mana. Mutinous is interesting. Just jam Mutinous, potentially we hit one of his Snowfall Guardians. Mutinous also corrupts. I like it. Got a multicaster. Also want to be aware, our opponent likely also plays Mutinous. If he hits E-Charge, of course then we no longer have access to the combo. It's just something to keep in mind. Here we go. Alright, he hit our corrupted Circus Medic. So we're going to have to find and corrupt our other medic to be able to get our OTK. You got 2 corrupted Dunk Tanks. I'm actually thinking that we play both corrupted Dunk Tanks. One on the Mutinous, one on the face. And that lets us put a lot of damage on his face, and then E-Charge will actually return both Dunk Tanks, so that'll give us some 8 damage burst. I like it. Opponent's at 18, we have 7. And then with Bloomy Charge, that would be 8. So we potentially have 15. So we'll equip the Auction House Gavel next turn. He likely plays the taunts, though. And he's going to freeze our Mutinous, so we're not going to be able to have lethal just yet. And he's going to heal for 6 next turn. We could answer this with our own Wild Paw. Question is, do we want to? Again, I'm just thinking about like board space issues. That's going to be 3 minions that are likely just going to get stuck on the board. I equip the weapon, this likely goes face. I think we're necessarily worried about dying, though. There's no burst in that deck. Question is, do we want to play this? That'd be 4 minions. And we're going to be starting to freeze stuff soon, most likely.
You have made a grave mistake.
Count on each charge is nice. Ultimately, I decided to do it, but I didn't want a hero power, just thinking about the board space. At some point, though, both boards are going to be getting locked down with Snowfall Guardians. You don't want to end up with too many minions on board, otherwise your opponent will be able to freeze last. Because remember, he who freezes last freezes best. Our opponent can heal here if he wants to.
Only the cold are fit to rule.
Here's Bolner. So the issue that we have here is we lost our only corrupt Circus Medic. And we don't have very many cards left in our deck that can corrupt the other copy when we draw it. So we have 5, 13 here. If this charge lands on either a Macaw or a Snowfall Guardian, we would be able to double proc each charge, which would give us 16 burst with the dunk tanks. I'm gonna swing first here.
Mistake.
Yeah, so the Macaw can actually
Swiftly.
get a 16. I think I'm actually going to use the first freeze here. Access to 3 freezes. I'm also looking to really end this game. I'm assuming he's going to freeze now as well. Keeping in mind, as I've said before, there's no such thing as a global rule. He's going to be board locked now, and we still have 2 freezes in hand. I'm going to cycle first. Here's our medic. This corrupts the medic. But we're really not even going to need the OTK because he's board locked, and then we're going to be able to freeze again with the Macaw, so I'm just going to pass the turn here. He would have to be able to kill his own minion to be able to play.
Your training, that's enough.
Yeah, and we just win the game. So you can see we won there because of the freezes. The board space, he just went a little bit too wide. Then he was board locked, and he wasn't able to play the freeze, so we had a good setup to be able to get to the OTK from that point. If he had been able to freeze the board, we would have been able to freeze, and then we would have been able to play the corrupted Circus Medic. But it looks like we may have actually had an issue with board space ourselves as far as being able to play that OTK. But just kind of the flow of the game. So he who freezes last freezes best. Again, not a universal rule. You have to adapt to what you see in the game and how things are going. We just didn't really need the OTK to be able to win that game. This was one of those tempo-based wins. And overall, just a really, really solid game. So I would encourage you, as you're playing, take your time, think about what your opponent can do, and think about what your best possible game plan is to be able to win the game. I really felt like that we were in the pilot seat for that game. It felt like our win was just inevitable. We knew our opponent didn't have burst. We had the ability to freeze 3 times in hand, and then we had the combo put together. I think we only had like 9, maybe 10 cards left in the deck. So a really, really good game by us. And because that game was actually so long, just in the interest of trying not to run the video too long, I'm actually going to end it right here. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like. Also, maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Planning on doing more videos kind of in this style, where I really do an in-depth explanation of the deck and the cards. And then, you know, next time, hopefully, maybe we can actually get in some additional games. But, yep, we're going to call it right here. Thanks again for watching. Good luck out on the ladder.